welcome to Knowing Jesus, week 25. I believe that's the right number. Week 25, deep dive. I'm joined today by Pastor Ben Powers. Ben, how you doing, man? It's been a minute. You were on the deep dive a few months ago.
Yes.
Your return.
I'm making a return. Glad to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So we are looking today at a passage in the book of John, John chapter 11. We have, that famous, really short verse, Jesus wept. Jesus and the resurrection of Lazarus. Before we get into that, Ben, I just want to, how are you doing? How's the pandemic been? How's this series been for you? Yeah, all of that.
Yeah. Well, we just our family just got out of quarantine, so we were quarantined for about 2 weeks, and then we got all the snow, so we're kind of snowed in.
So you're back in quarantine.
Yeah, you could say so. So I'm ready for warmer weather. I'm ready to get out. So.
Yeah, how has the series been for you? So you serve as adult ministries pastor. You do a lot of stuff with small groups. You write small group questions each week. How's the series been for you?
I mean, personally, the series has been great. I think one of the things that I have realized just going through the series is how many healings and miracles there were with Jesus, and I think it really shows throughout his ministry. And so. It's just encouraging. I mean, they're great pointers to what's ahead with the kingdom and what the new heaven and new earth will look like. So,
yeah, I think anytime we read through the Gospels, read through the Bible, it's easy to jump over certain things or to not sit in them and the significance, right, of Jesus performing all of these miracles and all of these healings, and it's like, oh yeah, it's just Jesus being Jesus. But one of the things that this series has done, at least for me, has been. I've been forced to sit and to reflect and to contemplate and to talk about. And then next week, oh, it's another miracle. And then the next week, oh, it's another miracle. And that's the business that Jesus is up to. And that's, so now we're going to see him. He's moving towards, one of his greatest miracles. He's raising somebody from the dead as kind of a precursor for his own resurrection and as precursor for, the resurrection that all of those who are in Christ will experience one day. But I guess, Ben, just maybe a quick little overview, recap from this weekend, from your message, this passage as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, it's a large passage, so there's a lot to it. So
we will not be going verse by verse.
we won't be going verse for verse, but it's always great. Some stories in the Bible, there's just a little bit that's written and you wish there was more. And this one has a lot to it. So
you're saying you wish there was less?
Yeah, there you go.
No.
But yeah, I mean, Jesus is, they're on the road. They're on the run. He and the disciples, we saw last week, Jesus was about to get stoned. And so he's running out of Jerusalem, and he's down by where John the Baptist started his ministry. It's kind of out. It's no town, no city. It's just kind of out in the middle of nowhere by the Jordan River there. And so he's teaching. He receives news about his friend Lazarus dying, or on the verge of dying, very sick, and he decides to stay 2 days there. So there's a delay. That's there. The series, the teaching is really on that that understanding of how do we respond to God when there's a delay? How do we respond when we really need God to show up and seems silent? It seems like he's not present. It seems like he's not there. What do we do with that? So Martha and Mary are they're very close to Jesus, as is Lazarus, and you would expect Jesus to immediately drop everything.
Yeah.
If it were one of your loved ones, if it was one of my family, I mean, meetings, appointments, ministry, all that stuff can wait. So.
Yeah, I think that's one of those. That's a great point. I think anytime we read biblical narrative, the question we should be asking ourselves is, hey, who in this story do I identify with? And the reality is it's usually not Jesus. Right? It's actually almost never. It's never Jesus, right? We're not the Christ. And I think one of the things I love about this story is that there are so many different people, right, within it that I think different people connect with more. I mean, you look at Mary and Martha and the differences, kind of the way that they handle things. You look at
Right.
Lazarus, even like as somebody who's going to be an example for us to follow in resurrection.
Right. Yeah, and I think too with Mary and Martha, it's I think we can relate to them that they were close friends of Jesus, and there's some of us that have been following Jesus for a long time, a large part of our life, and I think we could say nobody's perfect, but I'm sure some of us can identify with, hey, I'm doing my best here. I'm trying. I do what I can to follow God and to obey. And now it's my time of need, and Jesus has helped perfect strangers, like people that he doesn't even know their name, and he's healing them. And yet it's Martha and Mary's turn, and there's this pause, there's this delay, and that's probably really confusing for them. And I think we can maybe identify with that.
Yeah. So in this passage, you kind of towards the beginning, right? Jesus, he hears that Lazarus, someone he's very close to, is ill. He intentionally waits 2 days before going. He's questioned about that. We see later that Mary and Martha, they were a little upset with him for not coming sooner. But you have this disciple Thomas, and Thomas, we're gonna see him a little bit more in a few weeks. He has this reputation, right? Doubting Thomas. It's a phrase that we even use. Can you talk to us a little bit about Thomas?
Yeah. So after Jesus stays there for 2 days, he says, "Hey, it's time to go. It's time to go back." And they have to go back to Jerusalem, where they just came from, in order to get to Bethany. So Bethany is kind of a suburb of Jerusalem, and that's where Lazarus is at. And so now, in Jesus' timing, he says now is the time to go. And so, of course, the disciples are, they're kind of saying, this is bad timing. This isn't a good idea, Jesus. Let's not go back now, because, who wants to hang around the guy that's going to be stoned? That everybody's out to get.
Well, I don't know. Hanging around guys who are stoned. Yeah, you don't want to put yourself in harm's way.
Exactly. So, they're having this discussion with Jesus, and they're saying, "Hey, you said he's asleep. He's asleep. He'll be fine. Who, if you're sick, just rest." And that's what the disciples are thinking. He's going to be fine. Just let him rest. But Jesus knows that he's about to die.
Yeah.
And so they're having this discussion, and finally Thomas is the one who steps up and says, "Fine, let us also go, so that we may die with you." And it's kind of this kind of I'm gonna lead the charge here, but I'm gonna do it in such a very non way that anybody would want to follow. There's no
very challenge. Whatever the opposite of inspirational is what.
Yeah.
I mean, instead of was it Braveheart? You have William Wallace leading the charge. He's saying, "Hey, let's go and die." Yep.
Yeah. And so he's the guy that's like, "Hey, let's go do this, and then afterwards I'll tell you. I told you so. I told you this would happen. I told you this is going to happen." But the thing with Thomas is, at least he's willing to go, and I think that's the point of why John wrote this. Is that here you have someone who's a natural doubter. He has natural questions. He's naturally resistant at first at any change, any kind of risk factor involved in it. But he's willing to go. And I think that's how Christianity works. I think that's how our faith works. And many of us, I'm sure we could look at our life, and there's many situations that we don't want to be in, many situations we don't want to go through, but we're going to have to. And his invitation is, follow me in this. On the other side is there are answers. On the other side, this is gonna work out for you, but I want you to follow me.
Yeah.
And I think willingness is just a first step for us, and it doesn't mean that we all have to like it. I mean, because he doesn't say to Thomas, "Hey man, you gotta change your attitude." He doesn't rebuke him. He just says, "Follow me in this." And Thomas is like, "Okay, I don't want to do this. I disagree with this, but I'm going to follow you." And I think that's a good heart posture.
Yeah, Thomas is fascinating to me. Again, because he has this reputation, right? A doubting Thomas. And I think we have certain negative connotations, culturally speaking, about what it means to doubt. Especially, we definitely do in the church, right?
Right.
You're doubting, like it means your faith isn't strong. That means your belief isn't true. Like doubting, like just stop doubting, right? And
Yeah.
yet, what we see, I think, often in Scripture is that doubt and faith can exist simultaneously.
Yeah.
Even again the Matthew 28 passage when Thomas, he's the one who he wasn't there with the other disciples, and so he's doubting. Okay, yeah, you say Jesus is resurrected, and until I put my fingers in the holes in his hands, I'm not going to believe. And then
Right.
later, whenever Jesus is commissioning, the Great Commission in Matthew 28, he verse 16, 17, it says, right, they, when the time came, they went to the mountain that he had told them to go, and when they saw him, they worshipped, but some doubted. And I love that verse because it simultaneously, like, our worship is not mutually exclusive from our doubt. Our faith is not mutually exclusive from our doubt. And so even in this moment when Thomas would be a little more naturally skeptical, he's willing to both have a negative attitude about something, but he's also willing to, well, you know what, if that's what it means to follow Jesus, all right, I'm game.
Yeah, totally. Totally. And I mean, we find ourselves in that situation all the time where I don't like this. I don't want to do this. But some of those are an invitation for us. And I think Jesus knows that. And, I think if you're a parent and you have a kid, it's the same thing where, you want your kid to do this, or they have to do something, and they don't want to, but they just have to trust you with it. And on the other side, there's going to be growth, and there's going to be opportunity, and there's going to be there's going to be answers and clarity with it all. So yeah.
So Jesus and his posse, they arrive in Bethany. They found that Lazarus had already been in the grave for 4 days.
4 days.
So he was real late. And you have this interchange, right? Martha coming, saying, "Hey, if you'd only been here, my brother would not have died." Jesus saying, your brother will rise again. Then they have this, they get into this like question of semantics, like, "Oh, I know he will rise on the last day." And Jesus saying, "No, I am the resurrection. I am the life." So you want to unpack that statement a little bit?
Yeah, she is, Martha and Mary are two different people. They're sisters, but they're very two different people. And I think a lot of us can relate to that, where we have a sibling and it's our family, but we are very different people. And so Jesus, he deals with Martha and Mary in different ways, even though they both say the same thing. They both say, if you were here, my brother would not have died. And but yet he addresses their need and who they are and what they need in order to be strengthened, in order to kind of follow him in this. And so with Martha, he is meeting her on more of an intellectual level, more of a theological level, because he tells her, no, Lazarus is going to rise. And she is thinking, resurrection, the event, what she's been taught as a first century Jewish synagogue woman would have heard a lot, is there is a day coming, a resurrection day, and she thinks of it as, oh, it's this event. And Jesus then has this great opportunity to say, no, I am the resurrection. It's not an event, it's a person, and you are looking at him. You're standing right in front of the resurrection. And so it's a great picture. And Jesus taking this theological idea and making it personal. And I just think we can relate to that, where we know of some things. We know of a day when Jesus is coming back. We know of the day of resurrection. We know of these things. And yet Jesus would say, here I am. Come and seek me. Come and find me. Yeah. Let me reveal myself to you. And in that, you'll find answers. You'll find clarity.
Yeah. So he meets both these women. Where they're at, theologically, intellectually, emotionally. And then we see this just real human moments, right? This classic, a lot of people will say it's the shortest verse in the Bible. I don't think it is. There's a verse in Job that's I think Job 3:2. I don't know, something that says like, and he said, I'm like, yeah, it's a little shorter, but it says Jesus wept. I mean, that's pretty profound.
Yeah.
Because he knows what he's about to do, and
Right.
yet he's still in that moment is overcome.
Right. Yeah, we usually see Jesus' strength. I mean, we see him going around. If there's a problem, he's over control of his emotions, and he heals people. And we just kind of have this picture. But Jesus was 100% human, and he had emotions, and so it was disturbing to him. And so when he realizes the situation with Lazarus, it's upsetting to him, and he does weep, he does cry. And I think a large part of that is that death is not a normal thing for us, for anybody to experience. And when God created us, he made us with eternal bodies that would live with him for eternity. Obviously the fall kind of broke that, and therefore we have this death. And it's unnatural. It's not normal. We try to normalize it. We try to explain it. But the truth is there's no way that we can prepare ourselves. There's no way that we can get ourselves ready in order to come to grips with losing somebody or even our own death. And that's why the resurrection is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so good. What was that?
I'm in my basement, so that was a toilet flushing.
Oh, there you go. Oh, I ain't editing
Somebody
that
from
out.
upstairs.
That's awesome. Yes, that is right. Just to peek behind the curtain, we are stuck at home too, and so we make the best of what we got. That's awesome. So anyway, Jesus, he raises Lazarus, and then he goes to the tomb. Loud voice calls out, "Lazarus, come out!" Lazarus comes out. I'm sure he stank like no other. And then the plot, to kill Jesus. Like even though some did believe in him in light of this miracle he performs, others go to the Pharisees, told them what Jesus had done, and they continue to conspire against him.
Yeah.
So there's a word I want to look at. There, we think about like these deep dives. One of the things we get to do is we get to do little word studies. We get to look at themes and things that stick out. In verse 33, it says that he was deeply moved. So can you tell us anything about this Greek word here? So deeply moved. I'm going to try to pronounce it. I don't have the Greek in front of me. I just have a transliteration. But embryomai. And so this idea of being deeply moved is strong emotion.
Right. So this is Jesus' interaction with Mary. And so Martha was he met her on an intellectual level. Mary, he meets her more with sympathy. And she didn't run to Jesus at first. She's more contemplative. Stays behind. She's more in tune with her emotions. Martha's more in tune with her head. So Jesus doesn't give her theology. He doesn't give her an explanation. What he does do, though, is he weeps with her. And sometimes what we need is not answers. Sometimes what some of us need is just somebody to grieve with us, or Jesus to really kind of understand us. But the word is really interesting because it's when he looks at Mary grieving, he has this, it's a very aggressive outward response. It's like wailing. It's like a deep kind of emotional outward expression. And the word literally means to snort like a horse. And so some people, when they grieve, they're depressed. Some people, when they grieve, they're sad. When Jesus grieved, he snorted. And I had to look this up. So because I grew up in the streets of the suburbs, so I don't know horses. I didn't grow up on a farm. But when horses are agitated, they're emotional animals, and they snort. And they get restless, they get upset. And so it's a very, it's again another picture of Jesus not looking at Lazarus. He weeps for Lazarus, but he also weeps with Mary.
Yeah. Yeah, there seems to be like a wide range of usage of this. This word pops
Mm-hmm.
up in the New Testament a few different places, and it can be anywhere
Mm-hmm.
from being strongly moved, angry.
Mm-hmm.
One verse uses it as like scolding someone. So there's like this action that follows the deep emotion, and that's
Yeah.
directed in different ways. And I think that there's probably a lot of things in scope, right? Jesus, he's sad for his friend. He's upset.
Yeah.
He's angry because this isn't how it's supposed to be, and it
Right.
shouldn't have happened.
Right.
So,
Right.
well, cool.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's our passage, John 11, 1 through 46. Obviously,
Yeah.
lots of things we can focus on, pull out. But I wanted to move into the Ask the Pastor segment. Ben, I've got a question for you. I teased you before we
All
started
right.
recording. I said I've got something for you. This came up. I was talking to Matt Bayer. There's that toilet flush again. Talking to Matt Bayer, one of our youth pastors.
Mm-hmm.
And he had this thought that popped up in one of his classes this week, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it because it's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
God, one of the ways we understand him, we think about him, is we think about his different attributes, his different characteristics, and some of these characteristics are the omnis, right? The
Mm-hmm.
omnipotence, the omnipresent, basically all powerful, all present, all knowing. I wanted to ask you about one of those, though. The omnipresent. Is he omnipresent?
I have to believe so.
Okay. So I guess
Yeah.
where the question comes from is,
Mm-hmm.
kind of as Greek thought, right? What the Greeks did was they would take a certain human characteristic, and then they would say, okay, I know what it means to be loving. God
Mm-hmm.
has to be the infinite version of that. So the infinite loving. I know
Mm-hmm.
what it means to be powerful. God, to be God, has to be the omni version, the infinite version of that. He is
Right.
all powerful. Presence, right?
Right.
God is all present. But we see in the Old Testament, like the presence of God has locations, and
Mm-hmm.
and those locations are significant. So I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
I almost wonder, do we do injustice to God's presence by saying he's everywhere? I don't know. Just riff on that for a minute.
Yeah. No. Yeah. That's a great. I mean, it's a great thought. Yeah. I mean, obviously, there are attributes of God that we share, that we have joy, love, those kinds of attributes. But then there are these attributes that we do not. We are not present everywhere. We are not all powerful in all situations. And I do think there are times, right, in the Old Testament where the living presence of God is in the ark. Moses would go to the mountain, Mount Sinai, to hear from God. It's kind of like that's where God was, and you had to go there. And I think it was very specific for the Israelite people. I think those were times and places for people to really kind of grasp the personal God. But I don't think it takes away from the sense that he really is. I mean, when it's omnipresent, he's everywhere. And so I think he knows what's happening in all people at all times. I think that's biblical. But I do think it's hard for us to wrap our minds around it. It's hard for us to say, how can that be? How can that happen? And we just have to come back to that's an attribute we don't share.
Yeah, and I think that's it. There's a paradoxical nature here where we're just not going to get it. But even in this passage, right, we see Jesus as God, right, not physically present in every place.
Right.
So, anyway, cool.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Did you have anything else you wanted to add? You started to.
Well, I think he purposely puts limits on that. With Jesus, he was God, but he was limited to Jesus' human body, and therefore was present in that moment, in those moments at that time. So, I mean, it's a really interesting thought. I mean, we just don't kind of think through all of that.
Sure.
And it's
Well,
it just
it
goes to
does.
show there's-
I would say it points to that language can only do so much for us, right? That that's a great thought, a great exercise. God, all powerful,
Yeah.
all present, all knowing, and those things can be true, and yet we don't have the most articulate way of expressing or even understanding the significance of what that means. So
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Awesome, Ben. Well, hey, thank you. Thanks for joining for the deep dive. Thanks for preaching this weekend, opening up God's word for our body. I would say this: if you enjoyed this deep dive, you want to hear more, we have deep dives for every week of this series. Just go to our website, calvary.church/knowingjesus. That'll take you to a resource page. You can also find all of these deep dives and other content on our YouTube channel. Search Calvary Online, Calvary Church St. Peter's. Any of those things will get you to our YouTube page, our YouTube channel, and I'd invite you to hit that subscribe button. I've also want to do, I don't know where it is, right there, maybe. Hit the subscribe button, and that'll just allow you to get the freshest, newest content. You'll be notified. You'll be receive notification of when there is new material available, so you don't miss anything out. Ben, it's been a joy. Enjoy talking about God's word with you.
Appreciate it.
Look forward to it again.
Yeah, for sure, man.
All right.
Thanks.
Yep. See y'all. God bless.